Okay, morning everybody, and welcome to our corporate fundraising demystified webinar. Hopefully, you can all see the slides. If somebody on the panel can just give me a quick yes to tell me that's worked.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, so I'm Sarah Fatika. I'm Director of People and Funding, and I'll be hosting today's webinar and even doing a little bit of presenting myself this time round. I'm delighted to be joined today by our panellists, Lorraine Lewis, CEO of the Lewis Foundation Charity, and Nick Farthing, Chair of Hampshire CRP. Unfortunately, our speaker, Warren Birch from Community Rail Cumbria, is unable to attend due to ill health. However, he'd already done all the work, and therefore Hazel Lavery is going to step in and deliver his presentation so we can all still hear about their corporate partnership case study. And we've also got somebody from the CRP joining us who'll be able to join in with some of the Q&As towards the end of that session. So a quick bit of housekeeping from me. I think most of us now are very familiar with Zoom functions. Just a couple of quick reminders. If you haven't already, please can you rename yourself to include your full name and the name of your organisation. The webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our website along with the presentation slides so you can reflect back on it at a later stage. In terms of chat and Q&As, please make sure that you use the Q&A button or the raise hand function to ask specific questions when we're at that point. And you can use the chat option throughout for any general comments or ideas you'd like to share as we go along. If you have any Zoom-related technical difficulties during the presentation, please text Hannah with your name and she'll call you back as soon as she can. Her number is going to be in the chat if it's not already, and it's also on the original joining information that you had through. And I'll remind again at the end, but there will be a usual online feedback survey which will pop up automatically as the webinar closes, and we'd really appreciate it if you just take a few minutes to complete that anonymously, of course. So I just thought I'd start off by giving you a little reminder that as well as accessing support from your support and development team lead on funding advice, you can also contact the events and funding team, and our pictures are up there if you don't know who we are, and we can also provide additional information on partnership development and funding. Between us, we've many years, too many to say, of combined fundraising experience, and we'd be happy to talk to you if you're looking for some specialist or additional advice. And we're also really good at signposting, and we can also share template documents and the like if that's helpful to you. And you can always access our details via the Community Rail Network website and the Meet the Team pages, which have got all our email addresses and telephone numbers on. So I wanted just to provide a quick scene setting for today's session and talk a little bit about what is corporate fundraising. And I think this quote, while it's a relatively dry definition, it's really important to note that there is more to corporate fundraising than simply trying to secure a financial contribution. Increasingly, it's about building a relationship, a partnership between a company and your cause. And while this particular quote talks about the charity, this definition applies to any non-profit organisation or group, large or small, who is looking to work with corporates and businesses of all sizes. So we thought, just to kick things off, we would do a really quick straw poll and ask you when you think corporate fundraising first began. So when was the first cause-related marketing campaign in the UK? So Hannah's going to launch that poll now, hopefully, and you will be able to click on the answers. So you've got 4 dates to choose from: 1887, 1917, 1947, and 1977. So we'll have a look. Hopefully that's popped up. Plug in your answer.
It's running away in the background. I'll give it another 10 seconds. Hopefully everyone's taken a punt.
Don't worry, you're not going to get evicted if you get it wrong.
I'm going to end the poll now.
Lovely.
I'll share the results too. Hopefully they'll come up.
Let's have a look. So, okay, overwhelmingly, 59% thought it was 1887, which just goes to show how on top of your corporate fundraising history you all are, because that is indeed the correct date. It was actually, and this is according to the Directory of Social Change, all the way back in 1887, when the RNLI archives show that Lever Brothers ran a special competition to fund a new lifeboat. It was a really successful campaign, and as a result, the Sunlight Number One lifeboat was launched by Llandudno Lifeboat Station. So as you can see, back in the day, branding wasn't quite so overt, not a logo in sight there, but it just goes to show that this concept has actually been around for a really long time. So I think it's fair to say that fundraising has evolved as a discipline, particularly over more recent years. It used to be very much talked about as fundraising, whereas now we talk much more about partnerships and building strategic reciprocal relationships around a shared goal. And I think this has also been really reflected in the business world too, as they developed corporate social responsibility and social value programs. But we thought we'd talk around some of these differences. So the first one being money versus mission. So, what is the reason for building your corporate partnerships? Is it to raise money, or is it to help you to achieve your mission? Ask yourself, why do you need to raise money? It's likely that it is going to be to achieve your mission. So when you start building your corporate partnerships, do so from a place of shared purpose. Try to identify what your own and your potential partners' missions are, and look for the overlap and see where you can align. Short term versus long term. This is really centered around targets, I think, and corporate fundraising is often driven by short-term financial goals, often with a pressure to build a partnership perhaps before either of you are quite ready, just so you can meet that funding target. However, it's really important to understand that it takes time to understand one another's organizations and to build a meaningful partnership. Try and think long term, and bear in mind that a partnership that lasts for years will bring significantly more value to your organization than a short one-off supporter or partnership. Asking versus offering. So instead of seeing companies just as something you can take from, see them as organizations that you can add to. So just asking for money, say, to cover your overheads, that's never going to be that inspiring to a corporate supporter. Whereas making an offer, for example, your company can be a community champion for sustainable travel, and educating young people in rail safety might be far more appealing to them. Your group is a great catch. Try and be confident in your value and show that company what's in it for them and how they can actively support your objectives. Solutions versus problems. So this is really thinking about the conversations you're having and how you make those pitches to those corporates. Fundraisers can often take ready-made projects that need funding to a company, hoping for a donation and nothing more. The partnership approach can include taking a problem or an idea to a company and asking them to solve it, or to give their insight and input into it. And this can often lead to a better solution to the problem, as well as you helping to secure some funding and to develop that partnership. Quantity versus quality. Again, this is about focus. So rather than speaking to lots of companies and casting your net really wide in the hope that you'll catch some partners, zone in and ask who is going to be able to help us achieve our mission, and perhaps focus on a smaller, more targeted list of prospects, and give yourself time to develop that relationship. So, as we've touched upon, I think in the past, there are many different ways that corporate partnerships can give, and you're going to see much more on this throughout the ensuing presentations. But we've got donations and match funding, project sponsorships, staff fundraising, employee involvement and volunteering, gifts in kind, charity of the year, just to name a few. And really the best corporate partnerships can bring a multitude of benefits that support your organizational objectives, but can also help you to grow and develop across the spectrum of your work. So not just looking at that money coming in, the expertise that you can perhaps garner and utilize from partners, the enhanced PR to raise awareness on the work that you're doing and your causes, as well as in-kind support and gifts. So there's going to be absolutely tons of information coming your way today. We hope you're going to be able to get the most out of this presentation. It's going to really get your partnership juices flowing, and we're going to try and provide you with lots of signposting to further support and reading to help you start thinking a little bit more like a fundraiser. And I'm going to end just with a couple of slides. These slides are going to be available after the presentation, so you don't need to scribble this down, but they're all hyperlinked, and there's some really useful links here to open access resources that are available through a number of organisations that provide information to not-for-profits on fundraising, corporate fundraising, and all other types of fundraising as well. But I'd also say that, you know, doing a good Google search will also provide you with lots of agencies who offer free services, resources, and advice that you don't actually have to pay for. And this slide, which Hannah has very helpfully put together, also just shows some examples of corporate funders, just from a really quick general Google search, just to show you the type of thing that is out there, and what a quick bit of research can pull off for you. So that'll give you a bit of a sense of what different corporates are interested in, and hopefully give you the confidence to do that research yourself. And we've also popped in a couple of useful grant finding services there as well. So yeah, make the most of these. Have a little bit of a look around post presentation. So I am now going to hand over to Lorraine Lewis, CEO of the Lewis Foundation, so she can talk to you further. I'm just going to stop my screen share. Yeah, hand over. Thanks, Lorraine.
Morning, everyone. So my name's Lorraine Lewis, and I am co-founder and CEO of the Lewis Foundation. So we're a charity that provides gifts and support to adult cancer patients in hospital. And I'm really excited to talk on this topic. It's something we're very passionate about with the Lewis Foundation, and something we've really honed in on in the last 4 years as a way to raise awareness, funds and support for the Lewis Foundation. So I wanted to take you kind of through like a step-by-step basis of things that we've really found beneficial for us to secure corporate partnerships. So for us, corporate partnership doesn't have to be the big, huge companies that we hear about. It can be the independent businesses, the one-man band, who can also actually have a really effective impact in terms of raising funds, donating skills, giving time, raising awareness too. So from the outset, for us, at the start of each year, we always sit down and think who are our ideal corporate partners. And we make a wish list. And so we try and identify who actually would be the best type of businesses to work with us. And it's not just a case of let's work with anybody because we need the money, or we may need like equipment or skills. It's actually, does the work of a business align with our vision, mission and values? And we'll do like a little bit of research. We'll all write and throw a list down of the names that we want in the room. And then we'll go off and actually look at the companies as well. And that's researching online, maybe social media comments, because sometimes you may discover things actually they've said comments where things don't align with your business as well. And I think that's really important to have a clear mission, vision and values of what you hold, and that it aligns with the companies that you would like to work with. It's also important to look at what do you actually need from a business. So making a list of what is it exactly that you're looking for. Is it you're looking for a particular type of equipment, or do you need your website developing, or do you need a pot of money to complete a project? And being clear from the outset, this is what you need. Because often businesses can be like, oh, we can offer corporate volunteering, which is actually not what you want. And then you find yourself giving up time to do something that you didn't really want to do. So in terms of the partnerships, what do you need? But also establishing what do you think they would need, so that when you come together, you're actually having a partnership where both are getting something from the situation. I've also found it really helpful to have a document which we update every year. So it can be a two-sider, A4, or it could be a small booklet. And that outlines from the outset who you are, what you do, what your impact is. So maybe a testimonial from a member of the team or a recipient of somebody who's benefited from your service before, but also outlining what you're looking for as well. So for example, for us, we're looking for businesses to sponsor our gift packs. We do have corporate volunteering days. We may be looking for products to be donated to the packs, for example. So we set that out. So when we reach out to businesses from the outset, we send them this document so they know exactly what we want and what we need and what we're looking for from them in exchange. And then if you do get businesses approach you and say, we're looking for a particular thing to work with an organisation, and you could say, actually, this is what we're looking for, it doesn't fit for us. And sometimes it might be that a corporate partnership is not the right one for you. And I know these days it's quite scary to say that, but in the long term, it will be of benefit to you if you focus on the ones that really can help you make that big impact and difference. And also something that we've quite recently implemented, which I've heard a lot of charities doing as well, is having a basic partnership agreement. Just so you know from the outset, this is what our expectations are. This is what the business's expectations are. So you're both on the same page, because you don't want a situation where sometimes a business thinks that you're supposed to deliver above and beyond that you're more than capable of, and then it causes a real disalignment between you. But also, so you have some control as well. So it's not about the business leading the charity or the community group. You both have equal power. So I really wanted to focus on 3 things in particular for attracting corporate partnerships, looking at your online, offline awards, which is a really great way to promote the work that you're doing and get support. And then finally touching at the end on how you can leverage your partnership so you can work together on a long-term basis. So I really wanted to start with online first, which is a really powerful tool to spread awareness about the work that you're doing. 2 particular platforms personally that we found really helpful is the use of Facebook and also LinkedIn. In terms of Facebook, it's really useful for the one-man band businesses, also the small independent businesses as well. LinkedIn is great for kind of the small businesses, but also you can help reach the large ones too. Both are great platforms to actually push out the message, show your impact and gain new corporate support. So in terms of both pages, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, I'd recommend setting up a community page and posting on there at least 3 to 5 times a week, just so you've got consistency, so that people can see that you're active, they can see what you're doing in the community and that you're making a difference. I think it's already been circulated, but I gave like a kind of a crib sheet of different ideas to inspire with posts, because sometimes it can be quite hard to think about, well, what can I actually post about today? And so that's a great way for you to think, what have I done this week or this month that I can showcase about the work that we're doing and what our team doing and the impact that it's having in the community. And if you've got team members who are also on their social platforms who are quite happy to share the work they're doing, I find LinkedIn in particular is really great for that. Tagging in your organisation or your community group and said, for example, today I met some of our volunteers, or I was out in the community and I met with somebody who done a really good job with our charity, or it could be with our business, and then sharing and spreading the word. And what I found is that pushes out your message further, not from just using the individual team members' social media channel, but also for your community page and your charity and your organisation too. It helps to put out a bigger reach and impact. And what I also love, in particular with LinkedIn, I find, is it's a great way to connect with businesses and the individuals that work with those businesses. So you really should be looking for, if you have a list of the businesses that you want to work for, reach out to them, make a connection, just say, I'm really interested in your work, I like what you do. And then I wouldn't make the ask straight away, maybe give it a couple of months so they can see that you're actually genuinely interested in what they're doing. Usually you're looking at people in community social responsibility roles. They'll usually have that in their job title, or marketing teams are usually quite good as well. And just engaging and getting to know them. And then when you're at that position where you could make the ask a few months later that actually we would really like to work with you on a particular project or get to find out a bit more about you, then at least it's not something that's completely cold and out of the blue. And then at that time, I'll probably reach out and use that corporate booklet that I mentioned earlier as a way to say, this is what we're looking forward to. Offline is also still important. There's still a lot of people that prefer to use things like traditional print media, listen to the radio. And it was something initially we said everyone's moved to social media, but then we do find that we get a lot of people that have supported us that have said they've seen an article in our local newspaper or in a local magazine that has come through the door, or they've heard us speak on the radio as well too. So it's definitely worth, if you've got a good news story, you've got a new project that you're launching, in terms of reaching out to the local press and the local radio as well, to get the message out there about what you're doing. Traditional networking events are still really, really good as a way to connect with people, make sure you've got all your information about who you are and what you're looking for so you can hand out. And often, sometimes money could be a barrier, but there's a lot of free networking events out there within local communities. So it's just a case of looking either on Eventbrite or doing a Google search about what's in your area and seeing really what is relevant to what you're looking for. Are certain businesses going to that events that you may be really interested in working with as well? And finally, not forgetting community events, traditional events such as, your school fairs, your community events that happen all the time. We had a really good example of where we've secured a long-term corporate supporter who we met at a community event, just spreading the word about what we do. And that was in 2018. And he just came over and wanted to find out a bit more about what we were doing. Got in contact afterwards and realised he was a business that could actually donate products for our packs and to help us raise funds. And we've really grown together over the years since. So being in the community, you just never know who could be at these events. So there's still something that's really vital and crucial to attend. I also wanted to touch on entering awards. They're really something that's a really, really crucial vehicle that should be incorporated as part of what you're doing to promote your work, but also as an avenue to track corporate supporters as well. What you find when you enter awards, and if you become a finalist, is free PR. They're promoting that you're a finalist, tagging you in. Your name is then getting out before so many different other businesses and companies who may reach out and connect with you. And we had an example of that a couple of years ago where we entered an award and we were a finalist against the business, and the business had never heard of us before. And then they got in contact. They said, we've read what you do. We've been on your website. Actually, let's have a conversation about, is there a way to work? We could work together. And it was one that was in relation to healthcare. So it was a really relevant link for us. And we would never have met him if we didn't enter the awards, and the awards company didn't push us out as a finalist. It also gives you opportunity to create publicity, spread the word, whether it's using the social media that I've talked about, or going to your local press or on the radio, and just spreading the good word about what you're doing. People do like when people are associated with being a finalist for an award or winning an award. And it just gives you that credibility that you're doing a great job and that you're somebody that the company should back. When attending the awards, it's a great opportunity to network as much as it is to have fun while you're there. It's an opportunity to find out in advance, because you'll get a list of all the finalists. Is there a particular business or person that you want to meet there in the room, which you can reach out to and have a conversation with? Always carry information just in case you need it. And also as a fantastic opportunity to promote yourself, because people may be in that room hearing about you for the first time. So I found this an excellent way to put people on your radar. And then finally, whether you win or not, it's a great way to celebrate your achievements and showcase again, spread the word on your social media, offline as well, and just let people know about the excellent work that you're doing. So entering awards is something that's very, very important. And you could just, again, do a Google search about local awards in my area or national awards, and just start to get the word out there about who you are and what you're doing and the amazing impact that you're making as well. And then finally, I wanted to touch on maintaining corporate partnerships. So I know Sarah touched on the start about looking at having quality long-term partnerships, which is the route that we have started to go down. We want to build relationships with people on a long-term basis. So it's not just it's something that's a one-off, that once they get to know you, even when you're not in the room, because they know you so well, they can champion you and advocate on your behalf. So that's something that being our real core focus. So in terms of your corporate partnerships, to maintain it, provide them with updates, let them know how you're getting on, what you're up to. Check in with them. Is everything okay with how the partnership is working as well? And provide them with opportunities for involvement. So it may be that all they can do is donate money, which is great, but why not invite them into your work or invite them in to have a look around your project so they can actually fully see and appreciate and understand the impact. So they can see, actually, yeah, we've given money, but we're actually making a difference. And so then they will look at how can they explore working with you more long term. And it's still really important to promote the partnership throughout, again, using social media, also traditional print media, where it may be like a donation that's made an impact, or you've done a volunteering project that's made an impact. Again, the praise works both ways, and both people benefit from having awareness spread about them. And before, sometimes a lot of the partnerships start off as a year, but before that comes at the end, have a discussion and be open and honest and say, we've really enjoyed working with you and we want to work with you on a long-term basis. And let's explore what we can do together. And personally, I found doing all those 4 steps has really helped us on that journey to creating these long-term partners, whether that's the smaller independent businesses to large-scale businesses who now support us on a regular and long-term basis. So thank you for listening. That was a real whistle stop. I've basically demystified even the corporate partnerships and how you can have a long-term effective corporate partnership and how to get it in place. I'm always happy if anybody wants to connect with me, and there'll be an opportunity for questions once Nick has done his talk. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lorraine. We'll hand over to Nick now, who will just be sharing his screen.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, to both, Nick.
Lovely, thank you. Good morning. My name's Nick Farthing. I'm the Chair and Director of the Hampshire Community Rail Partnership. And thanks, Lorraine, for that insight. We had our AGM yesterday, and I tweeted it out, thought I'd give it a go, and tagged a number of people. And I had 1,500 views, the most I've ever had. And I've now had 15 private messages, and we've made some new contacts. That's the most amazing impact I've ever seen. So who are we? We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we have a number of partnerships underneath us, and the slides will be shared, so you'll be able to see all that when it's sent through. As from geography, we're down on the south coast, and we're Hampshire Community Rail Partnership, but we also cover part of Surrey as well. So today I'm going to talk about ideas for raising funds, and some of it is what we call revenue, is actually cash coming in, and some of it is looking for capital, again cash, and also, as Lorraine was saying, in-kind funding as well. Some examples of what has been delivered, just to show you what we have been doing, to put some meat on the bone, so to speak. A proposed scheme, and then some ideas, some new routes that we're looking at. And I was delighted to see what Lorraine had done, that we seem to be making inroads in the right direction. So the main options where we normally get our funding is obviously our train operators, through core funding and things like that. We have our local authorities, although that is getting less and less at the moment. We're lucky in our part of the world, we have local councillors, both at a county, town and borough level, and they actually still have their own annual budgets, which we are able to bid into towards projects. Obviously, there's a Railway Heritage Trust if we're working on a project that's relevant to railway heritage. But money is tight, as we all know, and where else can we look? So I'm now just going to go through what we have been delivering, just to give you an idea. So we've got Bitton Community Space. This was an old booking hall, which has been derelict for a number of years. And we got some funding from local authority, from the Railway Heritage Trust, from the railway company, and from working with the local community group had some money to help towards the decoration. And that's what it looks like inside now. And we did Platform 1 Shawford, which was, again, an old derelict booking hall. It's now been turned into a community cafe, been running for 2 years now. It's a not-for-profit organisation, that's the inside, but all the profit after all the money has been taken towards wages, costs and all the rest of it, that comes back into the partnership. And we get about £2,500 a year, which doesn't sound a lot, but that helps towards leaflets and things like that. And we have Platform 2 Romsey, again called Marco's, because we have a partnership with a not-for-profit organisation, and we created this little kiosk in this old plate layers hut, again funded through the usual processes, and that's been very successful too. And as I say, all the profits from that come back into the partnership. So the proposed scheme, just to give you a bit more what we're looking at, this is Romsey Station House. It's a derelict building. It's apart from the little bit on the right hand side there, if you can see my cursor, and that's used by the train operator, but the rest is derelict and empty for 40 years. And if you know Barnstable Station Cafe, that was derelict, and we're trying to emulate that. We want to turn it into an amazing space for art groups, men's sheds, any other projects we could think of. It's going to have a fantastic glass lift on the outside and some sort of retail outlet down on here. So ideas for raising funds, some new routes. If we have in our area in Southampton, Winchester, Romsey and Basingstoke, we have a business improvement districts. They are groups of businesses, shops, offices, outlets, where they pay a levy above their business rates, which is put into specific projects local to their area. And so we've, through our rail officers, going to meetings, as Lorraine suggested, or events, we've managed to get some corporate funding, work towards some art projects at Basingstoke Station, etc. Some projects in Southampton, handing out leaflets and safe travel. So that's one avenue. Chambers of Commerce. I have been closely linked to Chambers of Commerce in the Hampshire area. And again, going to events, sitting on committees, explaining what the rail partnership does. It helps even with when you're campaigning for certain projects that you might want to promote in your area. But again, working with local businesses, that got us a link into Southampton Airport with ABP, the local, well, they're a national company, they run Southampton Docks, and they helped us with corporate days, some funding for leaflets again. It's not always massive amounts, but it's the sort of money that helps you run your day-to-day work. We work very closely with the universities of Reading and Southampton. Again, it's in-kind funding, where we do a survey at a local station. We do GPS data to see where people are travelling from, what sort of mode they use and what they'd like to see at the stations. And the universities then put together reports for us. We then send them off to the local authorities, to DFT, the train operators. It's been built into local travel plans for stations, and that's now helping to raise funds because we proved the point that there's a requirement and a desire for whatever it might be at the station. And that's now leading to funding for the likes of South Western Railway and Great Western Railway to do work at railway stations. And it works out about £10,000 a year in-kind funding from each university. And again, we didn't receive the actual money, but we were then able to bid towards other projects. And that was seen as match funding, even though it's in-kind funding. And that helps us draw down some other funds for certain projects. So even when it's not actual cash, it actually has a value. It's a bit like when we're looking at the value of volunteering hours, and that has a value as well. We can use that as funding towards projects. We've worked closely with tourism outlets in the past, and we're still quite close to them. Marwell Zoological Park is in sort of Hampshire near Winchester, and we worked with them and a local bus company about 10 years ago, introducing rail bus links, where we put some funding together. Marwell Zoological Park paid towards the buses, and now it's a commercial operation, and the local bus company Blue Star run it every weekend and throughout the summer. So from starting that small bit of funding, it's now become a live project and commercial as well. Again, we work with the National Trust. Again, this is getting people to tourism outlets using sustainable transport. We went to see them. I think we might have met them at an event a couple of years ago. I think it was a local fete at near Mottisfont, where there's a large place to visit. And they said, "What do you do?" And we explained to them what we do, and we got together, and they wanted to have more sustainable access to their destinations. And so this year we're now starting what's called the Test Valley Rambler, a Sunday and bank holiday bus, where we've put some funding in, but the National Trust have put funding in along with South Western Railway. But again, perhaps one wouldn't have thought about going through that sort of avenue. With the construction projects we've done, we've teamed up with our local architects and local contractors, etc. And we've worked closely with the local authorities and looking at what does the community infrastructure levy deliver. And it's money that's raised from developer contributions. It's a little bit better now than what we used to know as Section 106 agreements, because with the community infrastructure levy, it can be a broader, it can be broader schemes. It doesn't just have to be in that local town. It can be broader across wherever that local authority covers. And we're looking towards levering in some money for the Romsey project, the Romsey Station House. And again, that was we did a public exhibition in the town hall in Romsey, and we got lots of people came in where we did a good tie-up with what's called Romsey Town Futures, and again, the Business Improvement District, and that's allowed us to raise funding for the promotion. And we're putting an article in the local paper this week and a banner up on the building with permission to promote the project. And we actually got some sponsorship from the contractor. He's paying to have the banner put up. You could be a bit cynical and say he's doing it because obviously he wants the work. At the end of the day, you still have to tender for it. But again, that's about £4,000 or £5,000 of income we didn't have to look for. So as Lorraine was saying earlier, it can be for a range of things, not just a specific project. And it also gets us out there, gets us known. Again, I mentioned the bus companies, a bit about what's in it for them, what's in it for us. They want to grow the business. Not all bus companies just take the money and run, but they want to grow the business. And we have a good relationship with Reading buses on the Reading to Basingstoke CRP, and also on the Three Rivers, where Go Ahead Blue Star and Unilink, who are linked to the University of Southampton, they work closely with us. And again, we look at options and ideas and opportunities, and that's how we've managed to do the things we're doing. And we've been very bold this year. We've got a new rail officer, Charlene Orondo, and she looks after Three Rivers, but also is our funding officer, and she's come up with some great ideas. And we've set up a GoFundMe page, which is, I think we've raised about £500 already now. It's linked to our Wolston signal box renovation and our Romsey Station House. And again, you might think, well, £500 isn't a lot. It is to some people, and it certainly is to us. And it's going towards the sort of revenue, raising ideas, creating leaflets, allowing us to go out further, out to the public, to tell them the sort of things that we want to do. And if you look at the costs of the projects in the past, the Romsey Station House is £1.5 million. The Bittern project was about 80,000, and the Romsey Cafe was about 20, I think it was, and Shawford was about 350,000. So we certainly need those sorts of things. And I mentioned Romsey Futures as well. Just looking at the time, I'm probably going a little bit too fast. So we know money is tight. We know our usual routes to funds are being reduced. In the last couple of weeks, through going to events, I've made a good relationship with Barclays Bank, and took a long time to actually get a meeting together. But the person I met, full of enthusiasm, full of interest, but actually it's their job to reach out to communities and reach out and provide funding, provide corporate days. And as I said before, if you can find a way that it benefits the person you want to work with, perhaps a little bit more than it benefits you, you're helping that person deliver their role, and you're helping them with something they need to do. As I say, we're working closely with Southampton Airport. Now, again, we have to deal with perhaps organisations in the past might not fit our terms of reference, to put it mildly. But sometimes if you can build a great relationship and make the benefits work, again, we've got to put the cynicism to one side. And again, working with ABP, they're a large corporate organisation, but they have things that they need to do, things they need to deliver for corporate social responsibility. and they're helping with apprentices. I found out yesterday they're actually helping with Rail 200, which again might not be relevant to community rail partnerships, but it will be relevant to community rail partnerships because it's a big thing that we're going to be involved in next year for a whole year. So again, it's not hard cash, but it's promotion and getting our names out there. Because even now, even people say, well, what's a community rail partnership? And you have to explain what it is. And when you actually tell organisations the amazing things that we all do, they're absolutely blown away and they want to be part of it. We've also, through the Chambers of Commerce, worked with, in Southampton, we have the West Quay Shopping Centre, and they have to do corporate days. And so working with our local offices, our local volunteers at stations, oh, we need a garden tidied up, we need a room painted, we need some hanging baskets done, or whatever it is. Let's organise a corporate day. They tick their box, we get our work done. And the latest example we have of that is at Swathling, between just north of Southampton. We have a baby bank and a food bank there, and the rooms were looking a bit tired, and we needed to paint the rooms, but we didn't have any funding. Well, one of our volunteers went to the local McDonald's, and they just got chatting because he knew one of the people that worked behind the counter. And from that, we got 2 days from the staff, and they've now painted the booking hall. They've painted the room where all the baby bank stuff is, and the food, where the food hall stuff is. And so all those things that you wouldn't have thought of, we've actually managed to get some fun. Not actual cash, but some things to help us out. So money's tight. The usual routes to funds are being reduced. There are other options, but we need to invest our efforts and get out there. It's never going to be easy. Be bold and widen your outlook. Never be afraid to go and say hello. And if you go to an event and you might see someone that looks a bit on their own, and you know someone else in the room, go and introduce those 2 people together, and you will benefit, because those 2 people will remember you, and they'll come back to you, and they'll see how they can help you because you help them. Sometimes the route to funds, the route to hard cash, is not always obvious. So that's a quick canter. I hope I've kept to time. I've tried to cover most of what I've got on my list here. That's my contact details there. Feel free to get in touch at any time. And I know the team are going to share details later. And I look forward to any Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. That was great, and some really fantastic examples there of different types of corporate giving, and lots of nice synergies between all our presentations. I think that rolled really nicely. So and you've finished in good time. So we now go into our Q&A session 1, which Hannah and Hazel are going to be bringing people into. So just a reminder to attendees, you can put your question in the chat, or you can do the raise hand function, and then we'll unmute you and you'll be able to ask your question. So we will open that up now for taking questions for the 3 of us.
Okay, so there's for the region coming in, Sarah. I'm not sure who's on the other end of the mic.
Hi, it's Zoe from For the Region.
Hi, Zoe.
Hiya. We're the hosts of a community rail partnership here in South West Wales. We cover Swansea, Neath Talbot, Carmarthen and Pembrokeshire. I'm really interested, Nick, in the derelict buildings that you converted. That's so exciting. There's plenty here in South West Wales that we'd love to revamp and give a bit of life to. I think the challenge that we come across is how did you get permissions from the buildings? Who owned the buildings, and was it easy to get those permissions in the first place?
Okay, thank you for that question. Basically, it's working through the rail operators. They have a number of empty buildings. With Wales, I suppose you're under Transport for Wales now, so I think the franchises are slightly different. But we work closely with the train operators, and through, just take an example, through the station surveys that we've done, people will say, well, would it be really nice at Shawford if we could, well, let's use Romsey as an example. It'd be really nice if we could have somewhere to buy tea and coffee before we get on the train, and especially now that the train operators don't have the buffet trolley. So we approached the train operator and found out that it was in their lease, because sometimes the train operator has a lease on the building, or it might be Network Rail, or it might be someone else involved in the railway industry, but not. So we find out who the owners are. Then we find out what needs to be done to it, because we have, I have a building background, but also we have local contractors that we can call on and a local architects we can call on. And again, that's our in-kind funding, I guess, because if you added it all up, it's probably come up to about £20,000 over the last couple of years in the hours that they've given us. So then we came up with a scheme based on the surveys, and then we approached the train operator and approached their agents, Amy TPT, who act on behalf. It's quite involved, and then came up with the idea, looked for funding. Some of the funding came from the train operator through their community investment funding, came through the Railway Heritage Trust, came through the local authority. We got some money from the Romsey bid. We took some money which we keep aside in the partnership as well, and we just put it together. We were bold, we were brave. We took out a lease on the building, which again is fees. I ought to really do a little booklet and share it around with CRN. As I'm talking, I'm almost giving myself a job. So, yeah, I'm always happy to talk. It's not for the faint-hearted, but never take no for an answer, because the buildings are falling down, and you're actually helping the train operator, because you're bringing the building back to life. You're helping the local economy. You're helping the local community. And if we use the Swathing example, where we've turned that into a food bank and things like that, we've had no vandalism at Swathing for 10 years, because we've made it look nice. We've used we've engaged with the local community. So yeah, it's a process, but just like anything, when you learn to drive a car or whatever it is, it's a process. You go through the process, you come out the other side a winner. So be happy. Now I've done that, I will try and sort a booklet. Thank you. I hope that was helpful.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, that was a good question, and you know, interesting to see also where the funding came from that. And it's a good plug for me to talk about one of our corporate partners that we have at Community Rail Network, which is SLC, SLC Rail and Property, who is part of that corporate partnership. Our agreement has been that they will offer our members up to 100 free hours of consultancy time around station building, leasing, property type projects and the like. So there's some really good information on our website about them, including a little video that they've done, which Hannah, if you could share that in the link at some point, that would be grand. And we've also done a past webinar on station buildings as well, which I can see Hannah's just popped into the link too. And I think we might even have a guidance note, so there's a few things there as well. But again, yeah, I think members garner a lot of information from talking to one another and doing that networking around the nuts and bolts of how they've done those. So really helpful to share some of that information, Nick, and we continue to look at how we can provide additional advice to members. Do talk to your support and development leads around kind of building thoughts and projects, even if you're just at that really early stage, like you said, Zoe, where you're just thinking we've got these redundant buildings and we feel like we could do something with them. Talk to your support and development lead as well, because they can signpost you and provide additional advice, and as appropriate, do some signposting to our corporate partner who can advise further. Did you want to say something else, Zoe? You popped your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Lorraine and Nick for their presentations. It was really insightful and has given me loads of tips. I've written so many notes. So thank you both very much for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we've got Richard Watts waiting to speak patiently, I think, now. I'll bring Richard in. I'm asking you to unmute, Richard, but I don't know if that's going through.
Right, okay. I haven't spotted in the left-hand corner of my laptop that you had popped something in there. Okay, hi everybody, and thanks to Lorraine and Nick for your presentations. Very interesting. I'm sorry, Nick, I'm putting you on the hot spot here with yet another question. And sorry, Lorraine, you may actually have something to contribute as well, I think. But Nick, the one thing I wanted to ask you, and it may be with help from other CRPs, you obviously spend time canvassing around and looking for opportunities to bring in outside funding to support your projects, which is something we at Community Rail Lancashire also do. And I just wondered whether, to help others, you could give some idea of the amount of time and staff resource you spend on actually going out and trying to bring that additional benefit into your Community Rail Partnership and into the many different projects that you were outlining in your presentation. And that may also be something Lorraine can help with, obviously with a different angle, because you're not directly involved in community rail as such, but clearly going out and seeking those opportunities also must take up staff time and resources from your point of view.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Sorry, go on.
No, fine, thank you, Richard. Yes, it's, as we all know, community rail or any type of project where we work with these sorts of things, it's not 9 to 5, it's not Monday to Friday. And with the offices we've got, they have a wide role, and it's trying to make sure that efforts are used correctly. There is no hard and fast rule, I don't think. You've just got to think to yourself, what do you want to achieve and how long do you think it might take? As Lorraine was saying, you've got to attend events, you've got to book the events, you've got to have a plan for when you go there, you've got to have the leaflets, you've got to have the desk and the pull-up and all the other things that go with it. So there is no definite, right, if you sit in a factory, you make grommets, and at the end of the day you stop making grommets and you've produced and you go home. This is not the sort of job. Most of us work from home, and most of us do it because it's not just a job, it's more of a vocation. So I'm giving you a bit of a waffle answer because I don't really have an answer, right? It's just passion, getting stuck in, wanting to make a difference, wanting to deliver. And the offices that we're lucky to have, Lucy, Mikey and Charlene, and I work with Mark Miller as well, they're all similar minded to myself. They don't just work Monday to Friday, it's evenings, weekends, bank holidays and all the rest of it. I look at your business plan, look at your line plan, look at what you've got to deliver and try and sort the resources. There will never be enough time, but don't think to yourself, I can't do that, I can't do this, I haven't got time. Try and make the time. I'm sorry, that's not really a very good answer. I don't feel very happy with the answer I've given you, but that's just the way I see the way we do it.
I think, yeah, I think it's I'll bring you in as well, Lorraine, because I think you'll have something to add to this. But you know, I think it is a real challenge for community rail, because as groups you don't have dedicated fundraising officers. We actually at Community Rail Network are just currently interviewing for a dedicated fundraising officer because we actually don't have one. A lot of our funders are managed and supported by the senior leadership team, and then Hazel and I, a relatively small proportion of our time and work, maybe only about 25% each, is spent actually kind of dedicated to our partnerships and the like. So I do think that's a challenge for community rail. But I think what we're seeing from from the presentations that we've had so far is about building in little bits of time and thinking strategically about where you need funding or support, whether it's in kind, whether it's hard cash, whether it's volunteering days, thinking about what are your key needs, wants and aims, and then putting a little plan. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but putting a little plan in place on what you're going to focus on and perhaps how much time you are going to dedicate to it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be significant, but I think if you want to develop long-term meaningful partnerships, you do have to consider that you do need some ongoing resource for that, because otherwise they won't stay meaningful and ongoing and they won't develop. You do need to schedule those check-ins that Lorraine and Nick have both talked about. And at Community Rail Network, Hazel and I schedule quarterly meetings with all our corporate partners, and that's an easy way for us to kind of manage it. But you obviously have bits and bats of other check-ins that happen over time. So I don't know, that might add a little bit. And I think Lorraine perhaps has got something further to say, so I'll bring you in now.
I mean, I do agree with Nick. It does take a lot of time, and obviously a lot of the networking events are in the evenings because that's when the businesses are free to network. And I think for us over the years, we've had to kind of like really focus on what is it we're actually trying to achieve, like Sarah says, and being really focused and strategic on what you're doing. And when resources is tight for us as well, we don't like have a dedicated fundraiser that can go out and do that for us. So really for us is about prioritizing what's really key for us right now. And to be honest, really utilizing social media. We've utilized that a lot because often sometimes we don't have time to go out into the community that month. But if we can share our achievements on social media, we've found we've got a lot of engagement and being able to connect with a lot of businesses that way and kind of make it fit with how we work rather than it being the other way around. So that's why I really focused and talked about the online as well, because sometimes we don't have the time to go offline and do everything in addition to what we're doing, as another way to make sure that the message about what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve is kept in people's forefront of their mind, really. So it is hard, but yeah, it's one of those ones that try and just prioritize and do the best you can with the resources you've got.
Thank you for finessing it much easier than I could.
Final answer.
There's Heather Collymore waiting to come in. Oh,
Hi, Heather.
sorry, I've clicked the wrong one. Here you go, Heather.
Hello, it's not Heather, it's David Northey. So I'm with Heather. I'm with Heather at this moment.
Hi, David.
Really good talk, Nick, and it's just really interesting. We've just done a community room at Bridgewater Station, which was derelict for the last 10, 12 years. And we've really worked really closely with GWR and the Amy TTP team, which has been really helpful because otherwise these rooms would have remained derelict for another 10 years. There's really low incentive sometimes in the railway organisations to develop these. But what it means to me at somewhere like Bridgewater, that it brings a presence when the staff are not here. So it starts to bring life back into the station. And we've got a number of derelict rooms. So Nick, I'd quite like separately to discuss and have a discussion about sort of other funding opportunities, because I think we've got a real opportunity here at Bridgewater to do something, and there's some other rooms on the network. But the bit you said about cajoling and working with, we had to, I think it was very fortunate for me because I knew a lot of people, so I was able to open some doors and push. But you've got to be prepared to do that, because it's often seen, well, it's too difficult, it's too difficult, it's too difficult, from just getting agreements in place, thinking about how you might work. Do you get a railway contractor to come and do the work and things like that? And I'd quite like your idea of putting some sort of booklet or something together would be really useful. The things that I learned, even though being a railway insider, and I'm more than happy to help you on that, Nick.
Thank you, that'd be very helpful.
I'll come over to Swadeling, and we got some other couple of things that we can talk about. But I was also interested about the National Trust link up as well, because we have in Devon, National Trust in their Green Week ran a connecting bus from Oakhampton Station to Castle Drogo, and that was really, really successful. And I know the National Trust have changed their policy on using public transport as a way to help their green target, and maybe there's a real opportunity of working across the country as looking at how we can work with the National Trust or English Heritage or any other large sort of heritage or leisure location in working with and providing bus services that connect at railway stations to those locations. So
thank you, and it's in their benefit. So as we said before, what do we want to deliver as rail partnerships, but what's the other side wanting to do? And it's a bit like if you have children, you want them to eat the peas and eat the spinach. What's in it for them? Well, if you do that, then something else will happen. I know it's kidology, and not, you can probably see it, but behind me we have the National Rail. I had to just put it out today. The National Rail Awards that we got last year, the Railway Oscars for outstanding. Sorry, the brain's gone. For outstanding contribution to society, and that was for doing Shawford. And if we'd given up 5 years ago, we wouldn't have won the award, but the local community wouldn't have that fantastic place to visit. And it's always worth it. It's always every step is the first step, isn't it? But it's always worth it. And
I took the opportunity to go down to Oakhampton and travel on the bus and personally interview everybody who was on the bus to understand why were they there. And they said, well, they come because it was there. They had avoided them driving. There was a carbon thing. So there was a real capture of stuff, which I'm feeding back to both the National Trust and the Restoring Your Railway programme, because actually if we can reconnect these communities and use these things as opportunities rather than just seeing the train as a place of getting to work or health, and actually getting to other locations is good for the industry as a whole. So
well, thank you for your thoughts on that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm conscious of time. I can see Hannah's got her hand up, and I was just going to say one other thing that occurred to me from some of the notes in the comments around networking events is you can also use your own events to network by inviting community organisations or companies to come to those instead. And that's something Hazel and I do. We invite prospecting corporates to our award ceremony, because what a great way to show them how fantastic community rail is, and we use that as additional opportunity to network and to schmooze them and to talk to them on the night. But community rail holds so many events and does so much work. You've got an opportunity to invite additional people perhaps to that as part of that networking, and to get them a bit more inspired about what you do, and perhaps just to bend their ear for 15 minutes and start that conversation. So I just thought that was something worth mentioning as an additional. Hannah, did you have something else you wanted to say before we go into?
Oh, I'm conscious of time as well. I know everybody wants a quick tea break, so I made a note, and if there's time at the end, I can flag it.
Perfect. Okay,
Sarah, just before we go into break, can I ask Nick a really quick question? Yeah. Where are your Community Rail Awards trophies, Nick?
Well, I've got that one there, but it's not fair to have them all at my place, so we try and spread them around the stations.
Good answer.
So all the awards that we've been lucky enough to be awarded over the years are at the local stations and with the local volunteers, because it's about them. It's not about my basement. So
great answer.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
Okay, so we're due back in at 11:10. I'm going to extend that just by 3 minutes, just so everyone has got enough time to use the facilities and make themselves a brew if they want to. So we'll see you back here at 11:30 to go into our next session. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for your questions.
We've got a couple more minutes, I think. So I don't know if that was a bit of an early premature recording, Hannah. I don't know.
I'll just leave it running in the background.
I guess we can edit it, can't we?
Yes.
See, I'd think to wait and then I would forget to turn it back on. So you do right to stick it on now.
That was my thought process, exactly.
Yeah, I'm always 10 steps behind my own brain. Okay, 1 minute warning for everybody who can hear. We'll start again in 1 minute.
Thank you. You had some good comments on the comments box. Brilliant.
Yeah, great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we've been having some internal talks in and around station buildings type projects and work, and thinking about what else we can do to support members. So there's a few ideas floating around, and I think potentially there will be it wasn't too long ago that we did the webinar on it, but we might need to do another one perhaps next financial year. But yeah, we're looking at how we can perhaps run a bit of a session with our corporate partner, bring in perhaps groups who are currently looking at starting projects, that type of thing, want a bit more guidance and advice. So yeah, watch this space. We're just talking to support and development team about that one, so there might be another opportunity for members there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we're good to start again. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you are refreshed and you have a nice warm brew or water or the like in your hands. And we're going to move straight on, and I'm going to actually hand you over to Hazel Lavery within the Community Rail team, who very kindly is stepping in and delivering Warren Birch's presentation from Community Rail Cumbria. If you weren't here at the start, unfortunately Warren has been ill, but he had done all the work, pulling everything together, and had quite a few conversations with Hazel. So she's going to deliver that on Community Rail Cumbria's behalf. And we also have, is it Paul in the
Yes, it is.
Peter.
Yeah.
Peter. Sorry, not in front of me, so I couldn't quite remember. So we've also got Peter from Community Rail Cumbria, who will be around in the Q&A session as well, and might be able to answer questions that any of the attendees have on it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Hazel.
Sarah, thank you. Can you see my screen and can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's all good, Hazel.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So I hope I can do this justice. Hi everyone. As Sarah said, I'm standing in for Warren Birch from Community Rail Cumbria, as we feel it's important to share this story, which is one of an unlikely partnership, in the hope that it may inspire you to research your local area and consider that there may be opportunities out there that you've never considered, companies that may have a vested interest in aligning with your CRP. So I'm going to whiz through a lot of this information now, but the presentation and the background notes will be available via our website in a few days. So the unlikely partnering, as you will see on the screen, is between Community Rail Cumbria and Sellafield Limited. So who is Sellafield? The nuclear industry, with Sellafield Limited at the epicentre, is the primary economic and social driver in West Cumbria. The Sellafield site itself is the largest in Europe, with a huge range of projects relating to the nuclear decommissioning process. Over 13,000 people travel to the site by private car each working day. A variety of shift patterns are operated, ranging from recognised day shifts to extended hours to provide essential cover in the event of nuclear emergency. The relationship between Sellafield and Cumbrian Coastline CRP is a robust and long-standing one. Sellafield is a recognised primary stakeholder within the CRP now, providing core funding and associated support for a wide range of community-based activities. So the background, how did it all start? Community Rail Cumbria and Sellafield first met at a nuclear transport group in 2010, a forum responsible for identifying and developing improvements to the Cumbrian coastline. As conversations evolved, it became apparent that both organisations had some similar objectives in helping support sustainable travel and protect the environment. It was clear that there was a potential for a mutually beneficial relationship to be developed. So the upshot of this chance meeting was the creation of a scoping document to rationalise the business and financial relationship between the Cumbrian Coastline CRP and Sellafield. The proposal focused on educating on and promoting modal shift within Sellafield, especially to its employees. This new initiative dovetailed into the primary objective of all the Cumbrian CRPs of contributing to and stimulating the economic well-being and growth of all areas served by the rail network across Cumbria. The newfound partnership provided the interface for Sellafield to have direct communication with several key organisations within the world of rail, including Network Rail, Northern and Direct Rail services. So wanted to achieve modal shift. Why the need? One of the biggest challenges facing motorists on weekday mornings was the tailback of traffic along the A595, affecting journeys to work, to school, medical appointments, etc. There was a desperate need to reduce numbers travelling by car, often with single occupancy, and to decrease emissions flooding the environment. In order to expand and accelerate the nuclear decommissioning programme, Sellafield have an ambitious 30-year plan involving large-scale capital investment amounting to multi-billions. However, despite the current size of the Sellafield site, this expansion programme cannot be achieved within the current land boundaries. In simple terms, there is no more land available for essential nuclear expansion. Consequently, on-site and off-site areas currently utilised for car parking have been allocated for the nuclear build programme, leading to the absolute necessity to achieve modal shift away from private car usage to public transport. So a comprehensive land and logistics plan was approved with Sellafield's executive board and contained a number of key transport related objectives that included the relocation of non-essential site staff to satellite locations such as Whitehaven, vehicle access to Sellafield site to be severely curtailed. The workforce was discouraged from using cars for their daily commute in favour of public transport, with enhanced use of rail a primary factor. Detailed discussions on the mechanisms to achieve the essential modal shift from private car use to rail services took place and plans were proposed. Just an aside note here, there was and is no possibility of capital investment on road improvement schemes, which is good news for rail. Other methods of transport for daily commuting for both the workforce and contractors had to be introduced. And these included establishing park and ride locations, enhanced use of rail services, particularly to and from locations such as Barrow, Millham, Maryport, Whitehaven and Workington. Cycling and walking and car sharing initiatives as well. So what challenges were faced by all of this? There was significant resistance from Sellafield workforce actually to using rail for their daily commute. And there are a number of reasons for this. The unreliability of rail services, in particular the performance of current local hauled services, shift times not syncing with rail timetables, perceived length of journey times, reluctance to leave the car at home, and poor railway station facilities. And this is a before picture of a toilet at Workington that was it was a shared facility. So yeah, not very nice. So stations were in need of rail infrastructure investment, and these had been identified collectively. So what rail improvements? Just running through really quickly. Community Rail Cumbria were actively involved in the engagement process for the new franchise back in 2015, with Arriva ultimately being awarded a contract to operate the Northern franchise as Arriva Rail North. With the forthcoming improvements in rail services under the new franchise and Sellafield's initiatives, such as purchasing season tickets, there were clear opportunities for two organisations to work together to achieve modal shift from car to rail and improve passenger services and footfall to Sellafield. So in line with these changes, it was envisaged that the role and remit of the CRP would evolve and will put the CRP very much at the forefront of this change process. As a result of discussions between Northern Network Rail, the CRP and Sellafield, new services within the May 2018 timetable were introduced to closely align with Sellafield's shift patterns. And that's quite a unique thing to have been achieved within community rail. Alliances were formed with Network Rail to secure infrastructure enhancements, marketing and income generation, developing business community and commercial involvement in and around stations, direct access to NSIP, the National Station Improvement Programme, and enhanced community involvement through station adoption procedures. In real terms, this would provide more services, increase capacity, improve rolling stock, and investment opportunities in stations and facilities over the lifetime of the franchise. So building relationships is key, and this has been said several times already. So yeah, it takes time to build a corporate relationship, and patience is the key. So during the course of 2015-2016, the Cumbrian Coastline CRP drove the following achievements which benefited Sellafield employees directly and the local communities more widely. Building on those important partnerships. They informed the franchise process, the facilitation of the collaboration of Sellafield, Northern and DRS, funding for renovation at Workington at a cost of over $1 million, public toilets now operational at Workington, the removal of single units except in times of emergency, operating at peak times, the allocation of single unit available under the Cascade system to the Cumbrian coastline, alleviating overcrowding issues, installation of shelters on stations, installation of CIS, and more. Like I say, these notes will be available, so anything I do skip over, you'll be able to read about later. There was a key focus on improving station facilities. The Cumbrian Coastline CRP and other key partners had aspirations to try and improve the facilities at two key stations used by Sellafield staff, Workington and Maryport, recognising the scarcity of car parking and other facilities at these two locations was proving a very real barrier to social and economic development. So Workington came online in 2017 and underwent major refurbishments funded by Cumbria County Council, actually, and involved building a new 150 space car park, drop-off area and improvements to the public realm at the front of the station. The scheme also delivered improvements to pedestrian and cycle access to the station. The new transport hub aimed to encourage people to travel by train along the Cumbrian coast, reduce traffic congestion and improve access to Workington rail station. And importantly, a new toilet. And following on from that, a similar project followed at Maryport Station in 2018, 78 space car park, new pedestrian links, new footways, additional drop-off areas, and more. So the CRP also applied to what was then the DCRDF, it's now the CRDF, Community Rail Development Fund, and put in a bid for driving modal shift. And the bid was successful in 2017, and they were awarded £9,000. And key components to deliver on that were establishing a season ticket loan system with the added incentive of 1 month free travel, a comprehensive poster campaign throughout Sellafield, rerouting of the site's internal bus system, extensive PR related initiatives through Sellafield's in-house magazine, also targeted leaflet campaign internally within Sellafield, workforce surveys, the adoption of Sellafield Station, and more. So what does the future look like? The CRP continues to work with the rail industry to secure timetable reliability, which will increase the appeal of rail travel to employees and drive footfall, influencing future rail plans to increase capacity along the line, working with the rail operator to increase cycle storage on board and at stations. And of course, the CRP will continue to work with Sellafield to promote the line as the preferred mode of travel. They'll promote the Northern Salary Sacrifice Scheme, which is a 12-month season ticket for the price of 10, I believe. Peter might be able to confirm that later. Promoting other attractions along the line, developing alignment, continue to develop alignment with shift patterns, reduce reliance on subsidised park and ride schemes, support Sellafield in developing travel apps for employees, and continue to develop station adoption and community schemes. Okay, and a summary of achievements. I hope I'm still within time. I know we started a little bit later. So as a result of driving modal shift, the DCRDF bid, a number of major milestones were achieved or identified. So increases in footfall, CRP-led transport hubs at Workington and Maryport. They are proving a prized asset in persuading Sellafield workforce to leave their cars at home. The lessons learned during the development of driving modal shift are becoming a key ingredient of a model project in the south of the county with British Aeronautic Systems, who's a major employer, and discussions are going really well with them now, and they may well be coming on board with a similar partnership with similar objectives to Sellafield. Sellafield's determination to encourage the workforce to switch from private car use to public transport has been key to a lot of this as well. The CRP is now firmly embedded within Sellafield's newly established travel team. And of course, they have reduced traffic along the A595. So that is a real whistle-stop tour of Warren's notes there. But I just want to say that everything that has been achieved here, and I think there's a phenomenal amount that has been achieved, is a result of the CRP's unlikely partnering with Sellafield. Without doubt, the CRP's direct interface with Sellafield's workforce through email, surveys and social media has and continues to be an exceptional step forward. And just a last word from me on behalf of Warren and Community Rail Cumbria. I hope you've been even a little inspired to go away and explore what organisations might you be able to align with in your area or region. You just never know what opportunities are waiting for you to find them. Thank you. And as Sarah said, Peter Butterfield from Community Rail Cumbria is online with us today and we'll be happy to answer any questions in a little while. Thank you.
That's great, Hazel. Thank you for stepping in, and I'm sure doing Warren proud in terms of giving an overview of that partnership and how that has developed over the past 12 years. So that leads nicely on to my final presentation for the session, where I'm going to be talking about why organisations, why companies support community groups and not-for-profits. So I'm just going to do a quick screen share now and get that going. Hazel, can you just give me a quick confirmation that's up and
it's up, Sarah? Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so yeah, you've got me for about 15 minutes now, and I think before I kick off, I just wanted to make the point at the start of this presentation that the work that your groups do delivering community rail activities is so relevant to corporate organisations who are looking for third sector partnerships and social value opportunities. And in most cases, as we said kind of earlier in the session, it will be irrelevant to them that you are not a registered charity because of your not-for-profit status and because of the fantastic community engagement activity and impact that you have. So I really wanted to labour that point, although a lot of perhaps corporate organisations you'll talk to will talk about charities and wanting to support a local charity, you absolutely will fit into that third sector cohort, regardless of whether you are or do have a registered charity status. So as we've already talked about, corporate giving has been around for a really long time, dating well back more than 100 years, as we saw from the Sunlight #1 lifeboat case study we mentioned earlier on in our poll. But it really started to emerge, I guess, as a concept more in the 50s and 60s, and today it's developed to become really an essential part of the business planning process for organisations and companies. Corporate social responsibility and social value programmes are now commonplace, and they spread awareness of the company's commitment to support third sector work and to have meaningful impact in the communities where they work. I think we all know that the rail sector is no exception here, and I think it's particularly proud of its work in this area. And we're seeing the rail industry demonstrating that this is increasingly becoming important as we see social value commitments being written into national bid frameworks, making supply chain companies demonstrate their social value commitments on paper. I think as well, it's becoming increasingly important when people consider corporate, put my teeth back in. It's becoming increasingly important due to public concern over issues such as climate change, social inequality and ethical business practices. And the public are thinking about corporate social responsibility more and more when they're making their own purchasing or engagement decisions. And as we've seen today from some of the case studies and some of the examples that have been given by other panelists, all businesses can enact positive change no matter their size. It could be a local timber merchant who are donating wood for a community project, or you could be talking about a global organisation such as Coca-Cola who demonstrates a commitment to enhancing water conservation and replenishment in water stressed regions. This is of interest to businesses regardless of their size. I thought this quote was a really good one. I'm just going to read it out. Corporate social responsibility creates a competitive advantage, raises brand awareness, and helps businesses develop trust with shareholders, customers, and employees, demonstrating that companies customers and communities can thrive together is a powerful advantage. And I think that sets a really nice scene for this presentation. So focusing in on why companies want to make these partnerships and want to give and support not-for-profits. Well, there was some research carried out by the Charities Aid Foundation along with YouGov back in 2022, so not that long ago, around why corporate giving is so important. And 4 key areas were identified, which I'm just going to run through with you now. The first being driving positive impact. So by engaging in corporate giving, businesses can drive tangible societal change in cause areas that mean the most to their stakeholders. It can be effective for corporates. It can be effective because corporate giving generates maximum impact for both society and for businesses alike. Supporting local communities was one of the key items, as well as highlighted on this slide. And whilst companies can make a big difference on a national scale, they are increasingly realising the benefits of helping at a local community level, and there's a clear demand for action from consumers on this. In this survey, 69% of the public believe businesses have an obligation to support the local communities in which they operate. Improving reputation and building loyalty was another key reason identified. Corporate giving is a great way to demonstrate to the public stakeholders that your company cares and that it can be trusted, and that helps to support customer loyalty. It allows companies to build stronger relationships with customers and even to gain new ones when it's really successful. Consumers want to support businesses that are ethical and that are community focused, and again, this survey demonstrated that 56% of people are more inclined to buy products or services from a business that donates or supports charitable causes. It also helps with improving company image and PR. Corporate social responsibility really does help to increase brand recognition. And we want to use and work with companies that care about causes and positively impact their communities. And by sharing stories of community engagement publicly, whether that's kind of volunteering days they've participated in, and talking about how that's supported community need, really helps to build their profile in this area. And it also helps to attract stakeholders and investors and clients. It's no longer about the bottom line and just about the customer. And the fourth point was around attracting and retaining employees through increased engagement and satisfaction. Again, corporate social responsibility demonstrates that companies are looking beyond the profit and they're trying to build a more positive, attractive and engaging workplace. And there remains a clear business case for corporates engaging in charitable giving, with 47% of the people surveyed saying they would be more inclined to work for a business if it donates and supports charitable causes. So again, seeing that positive impact your employer makes through supporting its not-for-profits, and also having the opportunity to perhaps be directly involved in engaging and working with these not-for-profits through volunteering opportunities and the like, fundraising for them, cake bake sales, that type of thing at work, that's shown to directly impact employee satisfaction. It also enables companies to increase their reach. So these relationships, these partnerships and the work that they do on them, it opens them up to new audiences, and particularly at a community level, it can help provide useful networking opportunities. And I think this is an area where, community rail groups have a wealth of local knowledge and community contacts that people within the rail sector, but also beyond that, would find really valuable in terms of reaching and being linked into. It also helps them to demonstrate their impact, social value, and the impact of community engagement helps to support a business's own social value objectives. And those partnerships that develop and last can have even a more meaningful impact over time. And this is something that businesses will be thinking about and looking at when they're looking for their partnership opportunities. It also helps a business support their income generation. You know, there is no two ways about it. You know, it can help to increase sales and support their service delivery aims. And I think for us, not only, you know, are we seeing that being impactful for the TOCs via increased patronage on community rail lines, but also, you know, the supply chain is seeing that value here as that community rail engagement and relationships are adding value to the bids that they're submitting for work on the railways. And that's something I think that community rail can really look to harness and grow relationships around that. And it also links to other strategic objectives, and I think this harks back a little bit to, you know, what both Lorraine and Nick were saying in their presentations. You know, it could be that an organisation, a company has a strategic objective to get more staff commuting by public transport, like the Community Rail Cumbria example with Sellafield, and therefore a partnership could really also support that objective alongside your own internal objectives. It might be that they've got a strategic objective to increase take up in volunteering days locally, and again, partnering with your group or with some of the adopters on your line could help to support that objective and be a good start to developing further support from them. So as we're starting to near the end, I've got a couple of slides where I thought I would share on some partnerships that I've secured in the past, and some of the reasons why those partners came on board and supported those causes. One is a larger national project which was worth more than 20k, and the other was a much smaller local partnership which probably generated under £500 worth of funds. So I think I'm doing okay. Am I doing okay for time, Hazel? Can you give me a quick time check?
Yeah, I think we're fine, Sarah.
Okay, great. So the first one was when I was working for a national road safety charity. We were looking for a project sponsor for an educational road safety walk, which was aimed at engaging schools on a national level to do road safety education within the classroom and giving them tools and resources to do that, but also for the school and the children to participate in a national walk on the same day at the same time all around the country. And we ended up partnering with a large supermarket chain to support this initiative. However, we really had to look beyond the obvious tangible benefits that supermarket chain would get by partnering with us, because actually having their logo on all the educational resources that we were producing and all the press work that was going to happen around it, which was actually a really good benefit because it was a quite wide-reaching project, that actually wasn't enough to bring that partner on board on its own. They were looking for more. However, we'd done our research at that time and we'd found out that they had a relatively, I think, newly formed community engagement team at that time, and they were working really hard to try and build stronger connections within their communities where they had stores based. And on top of that, they also had a strategic objective at that time on focusing on promoting healthier lifestyles to their customers. So this gave us two additional ins that we could align with this particular project that we felt they would find valuable to meet their own CSR objectives and potentially add value to our project as well. And I think in the earlier presentation that I did, we talked a little bit around that difference of fundraising and partnership development, and I talked about the asking versus offering and the solutions versus problems. And I think this is a really good example how by talking strategically and understanding the aims of the company that you're approaching, you're able to develop the offer for them while benefiting your own organisation. So this example in particular, the store had these community champions, and what we actually arranged was for them to act as advocates for the project, and they went out into their local communities and approached their local schools directly to get them signed up to participate in this event. And because they were offering additional support as part of that, i.e. the community champions would help with the paperwork, they would help on the day running the event and providing additional kind of support to the school, that meant that that we actually, as a project, we signed up more schools because we had these champions going in and promoting this activity directly. So it really helped kind of our own targets in terms of reaching additional schools and having more children receiving road safety education and participating in the walk. And I think this particular partner, you know, they really looked at how they could expand on that themselves. So they had some of their champions, as well as kind of participating in the walk and that side of things. They did things like they worked with the schools to go in early and provide a healthy breakfast for the children on the day of the walk, and that tied into those healthy lifestyle social value targets that they had, but it also enabled their community champions to deepen the connections that they had with those schools and those educators, and I'm positive that that they were then able to go on and have ongoing relationships with those schools, having had the in through this project and their association with the charity.
1 minute time check, Sarah.
Thank you. Right, so I'll go really quickly now just over the other partnership. Was a much smaller local community sports club. It was a youth netball club. I sat on the committee there, and they had a need for a new team kit, which was going to cost around about 400 quid, and they also wanted some raffle prizes to do some community fundraising to raise funds for new equipment and the like, and this one was a much more basic fundraising ask. The alignment was much more straightforward, and it was very much going into local businesses in the area and asking the question and seeing whether anybody had the funds to support these activities. And I think where we did something a little bit different with the kit sponsor, as well as getting the local press coverage that we said we'd do and some social media promoting the partnership and their branding on the kit, they asked whether they could hand out flyers about, it was a hair salon, asked if they could hand out flyers, if we could hand out flyers to our to the players and to the parents, and promote it that way. And actually through that conversation we suggested that they did a 10% off introductory offer for new clients, which they thought was a great idea, and that actually resulted in quite a lot of the young women and parents going to that hair salon and having a haircut, and they resulted in them getting some long-term clients. So they ended up being really, really pleased with that partnership, and it gave something additional to our players as well. So I'm gonna move on from that and just wrap up by saying to everybody, you know, ask yourself the question, who is on your local doorstep? Because nobody knows your local community in the high street better than you do. And sometimes just going out for a walk and reminding yourself and seeing what businesses you can spot and who might be interested in getting involved in local projects can really be inspiring, just by having that walk around and giving yourself that time out to have a think about who could you or should you be approaching in the area. And these photos show an example of a local town in balloon competition, which has secured a wide variety of sponsors, all small businesses, ranging from local travel agents to a specialist chemicals company to a pizza restaurant. Other sponsors included a funeral directors and the local cricket club. So a real wide community collaboration. And also look out for new businesses in the area. They're often a good way of tapping in, as they're keen to build connections and establish themselves within the community. And this other example is a pub in Todmorden, who was advertising that it's under new management on their Facebook page, promoting themselves as a more inclusive venue and hosting charity and community events. So, you know, they a good likely recipient of getting involved in additional kind of community fundraising. And that's just something that Hannah came across quite recently that we thought we'd share. So I will end on this quote, which is, size doesn't matter. You know, no matter how small you are or how small the business is that you're approaching, if you're clear on what your ask is, on how you align, you are in the game with everybody else, and you've got an opportunity of bringing somebody on board. And it could just be for a small amount but meaningful amount of money to you, as much as a couple of £100, but it could develop into something much more much bigger and much more long term. So remember, your biggest advantage as community rail groups is that you deliver really wide-ranging projects. You do such varied work across so many different areas, and you can appeal really to a broad audience because of that. So so don't be afraid to start up those conversations. And that's taken us nicely into the question session, and hopefully I've not overrun by too much, Hazel.
Only 3 minutes, Sarah, it's fine.
That's quite good for me, isn't it?
Yeah.
So sorry, I spoke very fast at the end trying to ram that all in, but the presentation will be shared and I've got quite a lot of notes on it as well. So hopefully that will be helpful if there was any bits that I did skip over there as well. So we will open up to Q&As now. Have we got any hands up?
I don't think there are any hands up at the moment.
We did have Colin Moore, but he seems to have disappeared. I don't know.
I can also, I'm just actually going to quickly introduce, I can see Dave Ellis. Hi, Dave, has joined us. Hazel and I were having a good conversation with Dave, who's now at the Rail Forum, but you might know him from his Railway Children days as well. And he's got a really strong background in corporate fundraising and partnership management and relation building and the like, and he very kindly said he'd come into this session in case he could share any nuggets or expand on any of the points that have been raised today. So nice to see you, Dave.
You too, thanks, Sarah.
We've got Colin back, so I'll just ask him to unmute. There you go.
Thank you. That is one of the
Colin.
best CRN webinar sessions I've been to, so I congratulate all the presenters. It was excellent. But can I raise a particular point? I take the point that corporate entities are prepared to deal with not-for-profit companies limited by guarantee. But we have had resistance from charities who insist that they only can give to charitable organisations. We amended our Memorandum of Association in 2020 to align with Pillar 1 to 4 of the Community Railway Strategy 2018 and decided that we'd go to the Charities Commission and try and become a charity. We found that they considered that Pillar 1 to 4 was too commercial and they wouldn't allow us to register. We did take that point up with CRM, where we did get some sympathy, and it was agreed that they would go to the DFT and discuss it with a view to the DFT then talking to the Charities Commission about community rail partnerships and their aspirations. We've had nothing back from that. But I think, you know, there is an issue there. If charities have got rules which don't permit them to give to entities like ourselves, then we need to, I think, get that message across to the Charities Commission so that we can benefit from a broader range of funding.
Thanks, Colin. And we'll perhaps come back to you separately on the DFT conversation point outside of the webinar. But yeah, you know, I think there are other channels of funding which are more prohibitive if you're not a charity, particularly around grants and trusts, and that can be a challenge. And we're Community Rail Network, as we mentioned at our last AGM, we are currently going, you know, investigating and hopefully going to go through the process of trying to get charitable status, and I think that will really help us to support members who are also looking at doing that, particularly if we're successful through that learning and the like. So there will be more information to follow on that if that does progress, and do please attend the AGM because we will be voting on progressing that. So a little quick heads up for everybody attending on that. But yeah, I mean, I think this is why development of corporate relationships can be really useful to us as a community rail movement, because most of us and most groups are not registered charities, but they absolutely operate within that not-for-profit field. The work that they do is very much aligned with types of work that charities do and the like. And my experience, and I've done corporate fundraising for over 20 years now, is that is not so much of a problem when you're developing those types of partnerships and looking for that direct support. There could be odd little things that it precludes you from. So I don't know if it's a corporation that has a grant giving arm and that is only available to charitable organisations, that might affect it. But actually, if you're working with their social value, their CSR teams, talking to their marketing teams, there's plenty of opportunity there to strike up a partnership and look at benefits that can come that way. And I think from what we've heard from today, from particularly the community rail groups who have spoken and presentations we've had, and from our own experience at the Community Rail Network, we've been able to do that with quite a lot of success. I don't know if any of the other panel want to come in on that further. Yes, Nick.
Thank you. With regard to the charitable situation, it would be really helpful if we could, because on the building projects, we can't claim back any of the VAT. And as a community interest company, we can't register for VAT, but we've been told by our accountant, if we were a charity, we could. And it really balks me that 20% of all our schemes have to be paid. I mean, I don't mind paying my taxes, but when it's for a community project, 20%, a fifth of all the money we raise goes straight to a tax, which can really clip your wings quite a lot. So I would definitely support the option if CRN are looking in that direction. Thank you very much. Yeah,
I think there's potentially, as as we go through that process and depending on the outcomes of that process, this is potentially maybe another webinar session that we could run on this to talk about in more detail. Colin, did you have something else to say then?
I have just asked Colin to unmute, so I think that's just happening.
This morning's session has made me realise that perhaps our fundraising activities are a little bit too piecemeal. And I'm now minded toward thinking about employing a fundraising officer on a part-time basis, possibly a one-year contract. That post I would like to think would be self-financing, but what are your views on that subject?
Yeah, well, sorry, go on, Nick.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Yes, I would fully agree with that, Colin. Charlene, who's our rail officer for Three Rivers, is also part of her role is fundraising. And a comment was made earlier on, how do you allocate your time? It's very difficult to do one thing only. So, Colin, if you've got the opportunity to employ a fundraiser, I would think that's an absolutely amazing idea. And I'm sure, I hope your partners agree with it, because it allows you to focus just on that one thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick.
And Colin, if you do go down that route and you want to have a conversation with me as well, we're just going through a dedicated fundraiser recruitment process at the moment. Happy to kind of share some of our resources and talk that through with you. Dave, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say in relation to that, Colin, I like Sarah, I spent sort of 17 years at Railway Children doing corporate fundraising, but it was great to hear Hazel and Sarah both say when I did join that it takes time. It really does. And, you know, with so many things that you're doing, I mean, fundraising, particularly with corporates, is not a quick win. You can get quick wins, but you have to invest time, get to understand their needs, you know, understand personal relationships and build relationships. So I think if you've got the opportunity to do that, I'd absolutely say you should do, because you'll definitely get some reward from it.
Thank you.
Sarah, we've got a question from Therese, so I'm just going to bring her in. Therese Hammond.
Hi, Therese.
Hi. Yeah, excellent webinar. Thank you very much. I just wanted to bring up the point that we've had a little bit of difficulty with our talk when thinking about corporate funding, in their reluctance to have sort of commercial logos and names at any of our stations, and generally those that we have approached are looking for recognition of their participation, and so would want their name and logos displayed at the stations. Has anybody else had experience of this, and if so, how have they overcome it?
No, Nick here. No, we haven't had any experiences where we can't put up logos of people that have helped to sponsor things. So I'm amazed. Wow, thank you.
I was just going to ask Lorraine actually, because coming from a completely different sort of context with your fundraising, as much as Tox, as Therese has said, might be resistant to allowing other companies' logos in their public space, you don't necessarily have access to that public space at all, even if there's someone who's going to shut down using it. So how do you kind of find that visibility for partners?
And sometimes with partners, we've had it where sometimes they don't want they don't want any visibility at all. So it makes it really, really difficult for us to showcase our work, and especially because sometimes we're in the hospital settings. Sometimes partners say it's not really appropriate for them to be in there, but what we do try and do then is explore with them, well, what other ways can we work together to promote the work we're doing? Could we maybe attend one of your meetings or one of your events to showcase and speak about the work we do? Or is there any alternative ways we can engage, whether it's through a newsletter? So where we can't be sometimes visible in public, where we like to be, we sit down with them and explore, well, what other ways and options is there? Because it's a mutual benefit for both of us to be able to showcase the work we do. So that's probably one of the ways we try and get around it.
Yeah, I think it is important where you're having some resistance in that way to find suitable other alternatives. But as Nick said, it's quite surprising that that your talk is showing so much resistance around that. I wonder whether it might be worth also talking to your support and development team lead, Therese, and see if they can also have some conversations on your behalf with the TOC maybe, or support some of the conversations you're having with the TOC, because funding continues to be a challenging environment for us as Community Rail. So if we're being disadvantaged by some supporters, that's a real challenge, isn't it? So it might be that some additional conversations that we could support with could maybe help with that and come to some midway ground. So yeah, I'll make a note, and we'll also have a chat with your support and development team lead and see if we can offer some further support and investigate this a bit more with you.
That'd be great, Sarah. Thank you. I think that we do need to have a focused conversation with South Eastern about this, and maybe there may be, some areas that they can relax a little bit more on. But what they do is they quite often sell commercial space at the station. So station for such and such a vineyard, or station for such and such a event space. So they're already selling that sort of space, and I think they see maybe that if we're giving free space to others, there could come into difficulty. But I think it's something we need to explore a bit deeper, particularly if we need to start going along the corporate funding route, which I see as a good route for future funding. Thank you.
There's one thing, picking up on what Therese said about that idea that it's giving free space to companies. That ties back to what Nick's picked up on. It's not free, because those companies are, this is to try and help you with the argument, those companies are giving something to your projects and Community Rails. So there has been a contribution. It's just about how to find a way for the train companies to be comfortable and recognise that value, I guess.
Thank you.
And I was just going to back up Sarah's point about, I think there is a need for us to have the conversation in-house with support and development, and for them to approach the train operator. But it may also be worth actually a conversation with the DFT around this, Sarah, because they're very keen on CRPs and Community Rail looking at other sources of funding and so on. So if the train operator is being obstructive, then there is perhaps a conversation to be had there. Whether they can do anything or not, don't know, but it's worth a chat into it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, have we got any other questions? I'm conscious of time. We're just a couple of minutes over, but before wrapping up, is there any?
Colin's come back in, so.
Could I make a point in response to the last question? Yeah. We have gone round this with Northern by actually putting anything that we get by way of support, we acknowledge it in the CRP notice boards on the station.
I'm just going to go and brush my teeth while they finish off.
And that,
it's Nathan.
You're still on. You might want to mute, Therese.
As now.
Well, I'm sure, Therese, your teeth are fine.
It's a great thing with webinars.
But the point was, with Northern, we've acknowledged support using the Community Rail notice boards, and there's been no objection to that. So it is a method that you could use at stations.
It's a good tip. That's a good tip, Colin. Thank you. Dave, did you just want to come in quickly as we wrap
Yeah,
up?
just very quickly. I mean, I'm so sorry I wasn't able to join more. I would have loved to because I'm very passionate about this, but there's a couple of things that I just wanted to sort of emphasize from my own experience, but also what's happening in rail, particularly at the moment. So I know Hazel and Sarah touched on this, but really do explore what the needs are of the customer or the potential partner. Really sort of position it as tell me about you, tell me about what you're trying to achieve, because that is absolutely the best way to start to build that relationship. I've got hundreds of examples of how we've done that both personally with people within businesses, but also then corporately as well, to really meet both personal and corporate objectives. Just one thing I really wanted to stress was I was actually with some people from DFT yesterday, and we know this from a lot of our rail members as well, that when they're actually bidding for tenders now, social value is becoming increasingly important. We actually know of members who've actually had their tenders turned down, not on price or quality or anything else. It's been turned down on social value. That isn't happening too regularly yet, but I absolutely guarantee it's going to get more and more prevalent. And the other real nugget is, and I know, again, I heard Sarah say this, and I think Hazel as well, try and think a bit differently. A couple of really quick examples. My boys were playing rugby at Matlock Rugby Club, and every single time the train went past, if anyone knows that, all the kids stopped, all the parents, and they were waving. So we set up a bit of a partnership with them around that because, you know, the rail was relevant to them. That then stemmed out to multiple relationships with even non-rail corporates because parents had significant positions in local businesses and national businesses. So almost think a bit differently, even as you were talking, things like rail freight. No one ever really thinks about rail freight, and you might not have thought down that route, but, you know, freight gets a negative sort of rap, if you like, and anything they can do to sort of position themselves more positively will be really beneficial. So, you know, the likes of Tarmac, DHL, Tesco, very big organizations that on a community level are looking to make a big difference. And they'll be the sorts of organizations that, to be honest with you, many not-for-profits aren't even thinking in terms of, particularly in terms of rail. So as I say, Sarah and Hazel both know I can talk for England, so I'll stop there. But you know, hopefully at some point I can share some of these ideas and have wider conversations with you as well. But I really would, you know, it sounds like you all are already, but that social value piece, but particularly within rail, because I think it's slightly behind the curve when compared to banking or retail sector. It is coming, and the DFT are very sort of focused on it as well. So you can certainly get some wins if you really focus on what you can bring to your communities.
Thanks, Dave.
You want to finish? Bessie Matthews works for GB Rail Freight. She's a freight train driver who she came up with Arlo's Adventures, and I'm sure she'd be a great link into John Smith at GB Rail Freight. I'll shut up now.
Very good. Very good.
That's great. Thank you, everybody. I've just noted in the comments, Peter Butterfield, very kindly from Community Rail Cumbria, has popped in Dawn McGough's email address if you've got any questions around the partnership with Sellafield, as I think we're now out of time to ask any more questions, and Hazel's going to tell me off if I don't wrap it up soon. So I just want to say I've really enjoyed today's session as well. I hope you've all got something out of it. I hope it's got those partnership fundraising juices flowing, and you can go away and you can start having a bit more of a think about what you're doing, how you do it, and how you might move it forward. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined us for all the contributions, especially our panelists, Lorraine, Nick, and I've got to say thank you to Hazel as well, who stepped in to do Warren's presentation. So there will be a feedback survey pinging out, and I think that will pop up just as we close. It's really brief, but it's really invaluable to for you to feed into our future events. So please do just take a moment filling that in and letting us know what you thought was good, what could be improved, so on and so forth. We will also send a follow-up email around with useful links, resources, plus the webinar recording will also be available on the website as usual. And I just wanted to flag a couple of future up and coming dates. The first one is award entries opening on the 2nd of September. Bear that in mind. Think about what Lorraine was saying regarding how you can use those award wins and shortlistings to promote your cause and the work that you're doing. We've got the conference on the 7th and 8th of October. We've also got the AGM penciled in, well, not penciled in, it's happening on the 5th of November as well, so get that in your diaries. And also Hazel and I are going to be running a online networking session with about 4 of our existing corporate partners. We did one last year, some of you may have attended it, but just an opportunity for you to come in to meet some of those partners who, whilst there are corporate partners, they're really keen to engage with Community Rail at a local level and see if there's ways in which they can help and support you through their social value arms and through the other work that they're doing. So if you want to find out a bit more about how we're working with them and how they're keen to work with Community Rail, watch out for that date and the promo on that. And I think,
Sarah, can I just add something in there? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Really relevant. On our website, there's all the information about our corporate partners and how they can support our members. And we have created an online member request form where you can request help and support from our corporate partners, be it gardening right through to marketing and communications. That's available on the website, and we'll send a link to that in the email. So please be aware that there's all kinds of help available through our corporate partners as well, and you just need to complete a form online and we'll pass it on.
Perfect. Thank you, Hazel. Right, apologies for the overrunning, everybody. It's been so good to hear and see you all, and have a good rest of day. And yeah, do use your support and development team lead to ask questions and get support on funding. And you also can come to us within the events and fundraising team as well. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you, and good luck. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.